Hey everyone, welcome back to Crime Weekly News. I'm Derek Levasseur.
And I'm Stephanie Harlow.
And tonight we're going to dive in, you can probably tell from the thumbnail, we're going to talk about OceanGate's Titan. Obviously everybody's been talking about it, but before we do have a couple of announcements relating to criminal coffee. We think you're going to like them. So first off, as it relates to the coffee, because as some of you have found out, we're pushing the merchandise through a different site. So when you click on the merch tab, it actually brings you to a different store. But for Criminal Coffee, when you're on the Criminal Coffee Co. website, go on there, buy your coffee, get whatever you need. We're going to have a discount code for you guys right now. It's the summer's here. We're running a site-wide discount. But if you're ordering specifically coffee, all you have to do, we'll put it right up here on the screen, is use the code SUMMER10. You can be capital letters, lowercase, whatever you want to do. And that'll get you 10% off your order. That excludes shipping, but it's 10% off whatever you put in there for coffee. No limitations. You can use it as many times you want. I don't know how long we're going to run the code. We're going to see how quickly it gets used up, but I would suggest if you want it, do it sooner than later. Then the second part of this, which kind of was a brainchild of Stephanie. She was joking around, not joking around. She's like, I want crop tops. I want tank tops.
I want summer merch for Criminal Coffee, yeah.
So we have a lot of merch right now. If you go on the website, sweatshirts, t-shirts, everything, mugs, winter hats, all that stuff. Well, obviously it's getting warm out there. So on that site, when you click on merch, you'll see it brings you to the store. Same thing there, the entire site, 10% off for until it's sold out. So we're not going to replenish like the sweatshirts and anything like the scarves, hats, anything like that for the foreseeable future. So as soon as it sells out, whatever we have, we're not replenishing it until it gets cold again. Same thing, summer 10 for that as well. And there's a reason we're not replenishing it. Stephanie is going to tell you why.
Well, the reason is that it's getting warmer out now.
Very astute, very astute, very astute.
And really, like, also it's a little like, selfish on our part because we have all the sweatshirts and the hoodies and the t-shirts. So now I want like new stuff. And so we have to make room, and the weather is changing. Although, some people did point out a good kind of point. They pointed out a good point, which is it's still cold in some areas of the world, so you should definitely go on, use the code SUMMER10 and grab all that stuff up now, because we might bring it back next year, and we probably will bring some of them
Definitely
back.
some of it, yeah.
Yeah. But not like it is now, with everything there to be offered. So I really told J&R, the people who do our merch, I said I want crop tops, I want tank tops, and I want like thinner material zip-up hoodies, bonfire attire, maybe some cute little like shorts. I don't know. I'm going to go ham with it. So I'm really excited. I'm going to work with them this week. We're going to get something out, and we'll let you guys know on social media if you follow us when there's new stuff in the merch store. Super pumped.
And so she's taking the lead on that. So all this stuff will be designed by J&R and Stephanie. So I'm kind of just going to be an observer. I'm going to watch and see what they come up with. I'm excited about it. So again, I know it gets
I feel like my dad's giving me like a project. He's like, I'm just going to watch, honey.
You can do this. I have faith in you. Either way.
I'm not going to step in unless I have to.
and I'll support you either way. Even if it's ugly, I'll wear the stuff. No, it's going to be good. And I know it's a little confusing. I apologize. We are working on it long term, where we're going to try to merge the two sites so you only have to do it once. But if you're a coffee person, maybe you don't want merch, go on criminalcoffeeco.com. You can go there. If you want to buy just merch, you can still go to criminalcoffeeco.com, but when you click on the merch tab, you'll see it redirects you to the J&R store. Yeah. And so basically what I'm getting at is if you want to buy coffee and merchandise with the code, you can't do it together, but you can do it separately, and the code will work for both sites. A little confusing, I know, but again, we're just starting off. We're letting this grow based on demand, and this is where we are right now. So if you want to grab those items, if you go on the sweatshirts and you see like a certain size and color is sold out, it is what it is. We're not ordering anymore for the foreseeable future. We want to make space for the new Stephanie Harlow designed, inspired collection that will be out relatively quickly, because we want to get the summer collection out before the summer's over.
The summer just started, man.
We got to get it going quick. So J&R, they'll be watching this. We'll get it going. That was really all we had. So can we dive into it? We good?
Yes.
So this is no surprise, I think, to anyone. I think most of the world was captivated by this. I know a lot of us, even me as a kid, I was super fascinated by the movie Titanic, and then I got kind of, involved in all the history behind it. I think a lot of people are very fascinated by the Titanic. And, we're not the only people. There are explorers out there to this day who still keep up with the Titanic, go and visit the site often, not only to, go over the history of it, how we got to where we are today, but also there's a lot of people who are very interested in preserving it because there's a lot of pressure down there. I don't know all the specifics, but it's, what is it, like 12,000 feet below sea level? It's like crazy low. It's like more than...
It is 13,000 feet.
13,000 feet. So like the amount of pressure down there, what's going on?
They said it's like the Empire State Building. Like imagine the Empire State Building is on top of you, but it's made completely of steel.
Okay. Yeah. So it's pretty...
sucks. It's bad. Like it's inhospitable for human beings.
Right.
Pretty much.
And so it's causing the Titanic to deteriorate. So a lot of times explorers will send...
Also, there's metal eating bacteria.
Yep.
That is like eating tons and tons of the metal like every single day. It's just vanishing. They say maybe within a decade, it's completely gone.
Right. And they're really concerned about it. That's why they're sending the robotic vehicles down there to kind of check in on it. They have brought up some stuff and now it's preserved in museums all over the world.
And that's controversial. Okay. Like I understand.
I agree with it.
I didn't think it was controversial because we've done this with a million other things, you know, like for instance, like Auschwitz or Chernobyl, things like that. Like they have museums and things where they've taken things from those sites and stored them. And I think that's a good idea. So the history doesn't repeat itself. Like you should remember that stuff. And a lot of people are like, oh, leave the watery grave where it is. Don't disturb it. But it's like, also, if you forget about it, I think that actually what we're talking about today is a good example of what happens when people get too far away from a historical event and they forget what the hubris and ego of man can lead to. You know what I mean?
Kind of lost me there a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm
It's
following you.
It's okay.
I'm with you. So we'll dive into it then. So as I said, there's a lot of explorers out there who are still going to the site and visiting, and there's a company by the name of OceanGate. This isn't their first time doing this, but they have taken a submersible down to the Titanic. They've taken people in the past down to this location where there's a very small porthole on the front or back of the submersible. I don't know exactly the orientation, but it's this carbon fiber hull. Basically, they go down this deep and they're able to travel around the Titanic and have a firsthand view of the Titanic. There are many people who have now posted selfies of them, looking through the porthole, seeing the Titanic. But as we're going to discuss tonight, there was a recent tragedy with it where it appears that there was a failure and a potential implosion, but the whole world...
Yes, it was an implosion.
It was. Everyone was captivated by it because there was a short term there where we didn't know if these five individuals were still alive. And like a lot of things, social media, I know myself, I can't even remember the Twitter handle and I apologize, but there's like a guy who's really a nobody who just like tracks ships out in that way at that time, who became like the guy on Twitter where he was like telling us all where the ships were, where they were moving, where the submersibles were kind of like going around to try to get an idea of what they may be doing out there. So let's have Stephanie give you the specifics in case you like live under a rock and you didn't hear about this. And then we can talk about some of the conversations that are happening about this incident and whether or not they should have been there in the first place.
I'm really going to do just a quick overview of the specifics because everybody is talking about this. And what I really wanted to talk about with you today is the submersible itself, because I know you're good with like this engineering stuff and you're familiar with these materials and stuff better than me.
I do like that stuff. Yes.
Yeah, you do. You're into that stuff. So I kind of want to get your take on it because I think that it comes down to huge design flaws and also ignoring these design flaws and these potential issues with the design, which I don't know why you would do that because it's so dangerous. Like it makes me so the ocean scares the shit out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. First of all, it is very scary. There's stuff down there. Like there's creatures living in the deep part of the ocean that we've never even discovered yet. We don't even know that they exist. There could be full ass dinosaurs swimming around down there. We'd have no clue. Okay. That's terrifying. When you know more about space than the ocean, that's terrifying. So I feel like I'd want to just make sure everything was good. But once again, that is where hubris and ego comes in when it's like, oh, we did this once. We're good. Nothing's going to happen now. So listen, so it all started when the Canadian icebreaker ship, the Polar Prince, left Newfoundland, Canada on Friday, June 16th. And this icebreaker ship was towing the Titan, which is a submersible that planned to take 5 people to view and explore the wreckage of the Titanic, the infamous ocean liner that sank to the cold depths of the North Atlantic Ocean in 1912. So they go out there, and kind of what I got from this isn't just like one day. They bring these passengers, which these passengers are paying $250,000 to go down in this submersible and see the Titanic. And OceanGate and its CEO, Stockton Rush, who was one of the people who was on the submersible when it went missing, they say that they're using this money to continue to be able to go down in these dives and basically capture the Titanic and what it looks like before it's completely gone. That's what this money is supposedly for. So they go out to the ocean, but then they can't just go right down. It's like a weather thing, it's a current thing. They kind of have to have all of the situation and all the elements have to be perfectly right. So they'll usually go out there for like 5 to 8 days, and only one of those days will they actually make it down
Right.
to the Titanic. And sometimes they don't at all.
They'll cancel it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have to go back out. And Stockton Rush will offer them, okay, come out next year and you can go again. So they go out on Friday. They get to the site where the Titanic is. And on Sunday, June 18th at 8 a.m. Eastern time, the Titan was launched. And the descent to the Titanic is supposed to take roughly 2 hours, right? So they go down at 8. It's only supposed to take 2 hours to get down there. But at 10:45 a.m., the Titan lost communication with the Polar Prince, which actually, as I found out, happened a lot when they were on these missions because they don't have any way to communicate. They were using text messages to communicate with the surface, and they were counting on like Starlink, which is, I guess, Elon Musk's technology. Elon Musk is a huge idol for Stockton Rush, or was. His Stockton Rush is no longer with us, but a huge idol, and it did feel a lot of like keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, because Stockton Rush would often refer to Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, all of these like pioneers in the industry, the titans of industry of today. So they lose communication and then they're gone. They don't come back up. They're supposed to come back up. They don't come back up. And for the first several days of the search and rescue mission, most of us, like Derek said, had no idea what was happening. We were all watching with bated breath. We heard that the Titan could have gotten lost because that's what happened before on missions. They got lost because they lost communication. And that's how they would guide themselves to the Titanic wreckage, by texting their surface team. And then the surface team would be like, okay, go a little bit to your left, go, whatever. So people were afraid they got lost, or maybe they even got stuck on something on the ocean floor, like a fishing net, or even got stuck in the wreckage of the Titanic. And we kept hearing like the 5 people on board had under 100 hours of oxygen left from the moment they went missing. That was stressful for me. Like, I'm having a hard time breathing because I'm super claustrophobic, and it was very stressful. It's now been reported that the U.S. Navy, pretty much as soon as the Titan lost communication, they found an anomaly in their acoustic data, which was consistent with an implosion in the area where the Titan was lost. And it was right around the time that they lost communication with their surface vessel. So we kind of understand what happened now. And that was one of the options. It was either they were stuck or lost, and they were just going to run out of oxygen, because it stressed me out, because I was like, just go up to the surface, right? But then you found out that the Titan is sealed from the outside with 17 bolts. And so it has to be unscrewed by the surface team. So even if they got to the surface, they wouldn't be able to get out.
Yep.
Oh, that was awful. But this is the fact that they had an implosion pretty much almost instantaneously when they got deep enough is, I guess, the best case scenario. It would be the quickest, most painless way. They wouldn't be sitting there like just suffocating. They wouldn't even really know what happened. Although
that's from my understanding, they would not even have known. It would have
I
happened
feel like
before they would have known.
there'd be some indication, like you would hear the cracking, and then it would be just a couple of seconds, but you'd know enough to be like, oh shit, something like this is bad, right?
Maybe there's been some demonstrations that they've shown of like less pounds per square inch of what happens with like train. There was a freight car or whatever where they showed like it was like 100th of what the pressure would have been at that depth, and it's like an instant, like there's no warning. It just boom, done. As soon as the air comes out, it's done. So I like how you worded it there, and it is like a touchy subject, but the best case scenario would have been obviously they survived, but considering if death was the only option here that we were looking at, this was the quickest way and the least painful for them. And I think down the road, family members I know if I were a family member, that is something that I would take from it.
I completely agree. Completely agree. I mean, like you said, if you're a family member, you probably obviously hope that they're still with you,
Of
but at
course.
least you know it was very
Quick.
fast. I guess virtually painless. Like it's happening too fast for you to understand what's happening. I hope, but usually they only send these like robotic, like drone like vehicles down there just because it is inhospitable for humans. Like it's just not it's not something that people really do often because it is so deep, and not a lot of submersibles or subs are even classed to go that deep. Like even government submersibles are not classed to go that deep, and we will find out the Titan wasn't classed at all, and which is why they probably had to have their passengers sign these like intensive death waivers before getting onto the submersible, but they just weren't classed. And they said that they weren't classed because it would prevent them from having innovation in the design of the sub. But I think they were just trying to rush it. So on Thursday morning, this past Thursday, so just a couple of days ago, a robotic vehicle found the tail cone of the Titan on the ocean floor. And soon after that, it discovered the front and back ends of the Titan's hull. And now the wrecks of the Titanic and the Titan sit less than 1,600 feet apart. Now come out that the company who built the Titan, which, like you said, OceanGate, unfortunate name in hindsight, because you know how they like call things like tragedies that happen like Watergate. Now this is OceanGate. It literally is. They may have cut some corners and they may have pushed forward with these deep sea dives, even though they knew their sub wasn't perfect. Like I said, in the name of innovation and progress, and that always bothers me because for me, progress is something that people act like is synonymous with positive things, but it's not. Progress in itself does not mean positive change. It just means you're moving forward. And it's kind of one of those things like just because we can doesn't mean we should sort of situations. But
I'm going to debate you on that one later, but we'll get through
yeah,
it.
that's fine. I mean, I don't even know how I feel about it,
That's
honestly.
what I'm saying.
Like,
Yeah, no, but I think it's a great conversation.
yeah. Well, we are initially like hearing all these reports, right? That the submersible was being driven by like a $40 Logitech gaming controller,
Yeah,
right? And
it was a plastic little controller.
It was. Yeah, and there was a lawsuit from a former employee who claims he tried to warn the company that the Titan was not safe. In fact, now we're finding out that tons and tons of people in the industry, tons of experts have told OceanGate, like, this is not safe. This is not good. You should not be paying passengers down. This is not a tourist thing. Like, this is very, very dangerous. And that's what I want to talk to you about. The design of the sub and the materials used were completely experimental and not typically the way that submersibles or subs would be designed and built. So, for instance, the Titan was designed to be cylindrically shaped as opposed to sphere shaped, like most submersibles are sphere shaped, and they wanted it to be cylindrically shaped because I guess they said it was roomier in there, even though it does not look very roomy
No.
in there at all, but it was roomier in there. And then we have a guy named Chris Roman. He's a professor at the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography, and he
Shout
said
out
that
URI.
yeah. Yeah, I knew you would have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, listen, the sphere, which is usually what submersibles use, is the perfect shape for a sub because water pressure is going to be exerted equally on all the areas. But the Titan was made cylindrically shaped, which, like, I guess it's going to be a little roomier inside. It's kind of like a tin can shape, like a can or like a pill. But it also meant that it would be subjected to more external pressure.
100%. And that's even like common sense.
Yeah,
when you think about a ball,
right.
And the wind diffusion around a ball, a sphere, is going to be different than a flat area like the side of a can or a pill.
Exactly. And it is common sense. And you know that these people had a team of engineers. They said they were working with NASA, they were working with colleges, all of this stuff. No one like said, maybe rethink this shape. And no, we know that a lot of people said that, but Stockton Rush and OceanGate were like, no, we know better. We're innovating. We're innovating.
I think what it comes down to too is, to the defense, they have made multiple trips down to the Titanic in this design.
Not that many, actually.
How many in total?
Not as many as I think there was maybe 2 successful trips. So they made it sound like there was a ton more than there was.
They've made it down there a couple times, and the design worked in those scenarios. But the problem is, and maybe if I'm stealing some of the script here because I haven't read the script in total, but when Stephanie's talking about pressure, my understanding is it's 6,000 pounds per square inch. So to kind of give you an idea of what that would be like, a small SUV weighs about 6,000 pounds. So for every square inch of that pill, there's the mass of an SUV pushing on it at all times.
Constantly. Exactly.
Over every square inch, not over the entire thing, over every square inch of it. So
Yes.
if you have a hairline crack or pinhole that you can't even see with the human eye in just one of those square inches, the car will go right through it. And that's when you have this implosion that as soon as there's one little fracture or one little pinhole, the whole thing would instantly close in on itself. And that appears to be what happened. So even though it successfully made, let's even say for the sake of this conversation, 2 trips down there, right? The chance of a catastrophic failure like this happening because of the design is a higher probability. And that's clearly the case here. So you have a situation where you sacrifice, or you try to increase comfort and experience when you should be more focused on the design and what's going to be the most efficient. And it seems like they went the opposite direction.
Dude, I honestly feel like he was just like, I want my sub to be a different shape. So, because it doesn't even make any sense, right? But it's not even the design necessarily. It's also the material, right? Because most deep sea vessels are made with steel and or titanium. But OceanGate decided to make the Titan's hull out of carbon fiber, which is very, very strong until it's even slightly damaged. Like you said, could be a hairline fracture that you cannot see with the naked eye, and you're screwed. And that's what it appears happened, because
there was even people saying, like, pointing out, and again, it's always Monday morning quarterback and we don't know the design, but there was even pictures from inside the sub where they have the monitors like bolted to the wall, and they're like, those screws are being screwed into the carbon fiber hole. Like, even though that's not going all the way through,
doesn't matter.
Does that weaken that one little point?
You're weakening it.
It's thinner in that one point where that tip of that screw ends and the exterior wall of the sub is.
And I'm an idiot, and I know that. Like, I know nothing about engineering, and I know nothing about anything. Like, this is the least thing that I know about. I know nothing about this stuff. I even know that.
Yeah.
And it makes me very uncomfortable. So we now find out in 2019, there's a former employee, David Lockridge, who sued OceanGate, and he cited worry that visible flaws in the carbon fiber supplied to OceanGate raised the risk of small flaws expanding into larger tears during pressure cycling. And that basically means the huge, massive pressure changes that are going to happen as the Titan makes its way down to the ocean floor. And we have a 2020 interview where OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush admitted that the Titan's hull showed signs of cyclic fatigue. And so at that point in 2020, the hull's depth rating was reduced to 3,000 meters, which he said would not be enough to get to the Titanic, because the Titanic is 13,000 feet down, which is 4,000 meters.
Yeah. Is it 4,000 or about 30? I thought it was at the Titanic was at 3,300 meters.
Oh, it's like 39 something.
Okay.
So it's 4,000. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But apparently, I don't know, at some point.
Either way, not deep enough. Can't get there.
Not deep enough. And he said that. He said, no, we can't, because of this. But a lot of people who saw the Titan, they were like, we don't think any changes were made. It's pretty much been the same since like 2018. But apparently, I guess OceanGate said at some point after 2020, when this interview was given, and before 2023, the hull was repaired or rebuilt by 2 Washington state companies, Electro Impact and Janicki Industries. And these are companies that focus largely on aerospace, which carbon fiber is used a lot in air travel, right? Just not in the sea.
Because it's used a lot on boats too, carbon fiber on boats, but not at that depth.
No, completely different environments. Completely. One, you have zero gravity basically, and one, it's like all gravity.
You know what?
All pushing on you.
Little side note that I thought was kind of cool. Do you know what some of the explorers who go to that depth or explore the waters refer to themselves as? Do you know? Aquanauts.
Oh, adorable.
I love that name. It's actually true too, because you think about, we know as much about as you were saying at the top of the episode, we know about as much of the depths of the ocean in those areas as we do out in space.
We know less. Less people have been to those depths of the ocean than have been into space.
Yeah.
So
facts. Crazy, right?
Yeah. Very crazy. And like, I love the Titanic. Like, no one loves the Titanic more than me. I've read everything. I know like details about passengers you've never even heard of because I'm obsessed. But would I be comfortable going? Nope. I can tell you right now. No, I'm claustrophobic and I'm terrified. I'm terrified a huge whale would come and just eat me, honestly, because right there, it's like a pill. So the whole design of the Titan seemed to be flawed. The carbon fiber tube was attached to two titanium hemispheres, and then those things were glued together with an epoxy. And this epoxy would have been subjected to two different kinds of stress and pressure from two different materials. And basically, Stockton Rush had previously said there was no way to even check this epoxy for degradation. So once again, you have the potential for, like, it not being completely airtight, which is what you want when you're in the ocean. And then in 2019, Carl Stanley, he's a submersible expert. He told Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, that the Titan needed more testing after he took it on a 12,000-foot dive off the coast of the Bahamas. And Carl, while he was down there, he apparently heard a large cracking sound during this 2-hour dive. And so he went back and he told Stockton Rush, listen, I heard this sound, and I think it's from an area of the hull that's breaking down. And Stockton Rush emailed him back and he was like, don't worry, we're aware of this. We're going to fix it. We're working through the issue. And OceanGate was planning to do as many as 5 more 4,000 feet dives to get more data on that issue. And a few days later, Carl Stanley emailed again. And he was like, yeah, I feel like that many dives at operating depths like that, that's not going to be enough for you to take paying customers down in the Titan. I think 50 dives would be a better number. And he said, quote, I think that the hull has a defect near the flange that will only get worse. The only question in my mind is, will it fail catastrophically or not? End quote. And Stockton Rush was 50 dives. That's a weird arbitrary number. That's crazy. That's unnecessary. We don't need to do that. And there's interviews where Stockton Rush is literally talking my industry, his industry, the submersible industry is so ridiculously safe because of all of these restrictions that they put on us. And that prevents, like he said, progress. It prevents innovation. We can't do all of these cutting edge things on our submersible when we have to wait for this outside company to come in and be brought up to speed on what the technology is, what we've done, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's like, listen, Elon Musk doesn't get classed. Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, they don't get classed. They have people in their company who do that stuff for them. And they don't need all of this stuff. And we don't need it either. So it seems like there's a competition, right? And Stanley kind of said the same thing. He said, quote, I don't think if you push forward with dives to the Titanic this season, it will be succumbing to financial pressures. I think it will be succumbing to pressure of your own creation, in some part dictated by ego, to do what people said couldn't be done, end quote. And pretty much, yes. I could tell. I read a lot of interviews that the CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush, gave. And it was a lot of he talked about Elon Musk all the time, dude. He talked about Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson all the time. And when you have this hero worship, this idolization of these figures who, are arguably or inarguably doing progressive things and pushing forward, things like space travel and stuff, and you want to be counted amongst them, and you want to go down in history and you want to be remembered in history for doing something that could never be done, and it's that important and monumental in your head, you will cut corners. And I agree with you. I think that, if you look at the early days of the space program, things like this happened. The early days of aviation, people would go up in these planes that were made out of paper, and then they would crash and die. And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet kind of thing. I get it. But then you shouldn't be taking tourists down. They shouldn't be a tourist thing. You should have skilled engineers who know what they're doing, know what to expect, and also know what they're signing up for, right? And there was a 19-year-old kid on this sub, a 19-year-old kid. That kid had no idea what he was signing. He just followed his dad's lead. He didn't know. He didn't understand what was happening. He was terrified to go. So I think, yeah, I don't know what this would achieve, because they'd been hearing for years that this was a bad idea. They'd been hearing for years that the design wasn't going to work, wasn't going to be sustainable, especially if they weren't, doing tests and checking on it constantly. And they kind of just ignored that. And now we have a huge tragedy, which if Stockton Rush wanted this industry to move forward, this is going to set them back decades.
So I have a lot to say about this, and I'm really interested to hear what you guys say about it as well, because I'm interested to get the temperature of overall. We have a lot of people who watch these videos, and what camp you fall into. So without beating a dead horse, because you kind of already agreed with the first part, you know, with new technology, discovery, exploration, there is an inherent risk that comes with it. A lot of people have died trying to reach new heights in our society, as far as the Wrights brothers, all these different people who everyone at the time thought they were crazy until they accomplished what they set out to do. And unfortunately, when something's never been done before, it's hard to regulate it, because who is the authority? Who's going to tell you what's right and what's wrong? So if the explorers themselves, if the innovators themselves are willing, understand what they're doing and willing to risk their lives for the sake of humanity and science and technology, then I have no issue with them doing what they want with their own lives. And I think there's something to be said, because from these explorers themselves, they've said that the answers to a lot of the mysteries that we live with, like cures to certain conditions and advancements in science and medication and all these different things, are at those depths. And so that's what you never know. You never know what you're going to find down there. There may be some type of fish or something at that depth. Who knows? We don't know. That's the point. We don't know unless we explore.
Some kind of freaking sea monster, dude.
I mean, it could be that too.
A sea monster that doesn't need any sun, that doesn't need
who knows what they're going to find? Who knows what they're going to find? So
nothing good.
I disagree. You could find something good. There might be something there that we can utilize here on the surface that could actually help humanity. We don't know. That's the only way to know for sure whether there is or not, is to explore it. And not a lot of people are willing to risk. Do you have your hand up right now?
I have a question.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I believe that the world was shaped to provide everything we need, right?
Okay.
We know that. For centuries.
Doesn't sound like a question, but okay.
For centuries, so I'm going to ask you a question. It's coming. I'm giving you context to the question. For centuries before now, we didn't have Advil. We didn't have pharmaceuticals. We were able to, people didn't live as long, and you die from a cut sometimes. But also, there were things in nature that are natural, antiseptics and things like that, things you could use. I don't think that nature has anything for humans at those depths, because nature is smarter than humans, and knows that we cannot go to those depths. So what is Mother Nature doing? Hiding some freaking gems down there? If you guys can reach it, you can have it. No, I don't. Do you agree with me? That's the question.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, what?
I think that if there's a mammal or something down at that depth that's able to survive under those conditions, they may have something within them that we can replicate, and it may cure a certain disease that we have that we're unable to cure at this point. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know. There are people, there are scientists out there way smarter than me that have found animals out in the middle of the jungle that we weren't aware of at some point, but we're able to take something from them.
The jungle on Earth, where humans are able to walk and live and survive.
Unexplored places.
But also on Earth, where humans can
the water is part of Earth.
Objectively live. But water is part of the Earth, but it's not for humans.
Who says that?
The fact that we will die if we go down there.
We've gotten down there.
But we shouldn't be. Just like I truly don't believe that we're meant to fly in the air. You know how terrified I am of flying. It's not normal. It's not natural. Going on roller coasters, we're not meant to do that shit. Not at all. It's dangerous and stupid. I don't like flying because I know I'm in that plane and it's unnatural, and ain't nobody meant for me to be in that plane flying. And just because we can doesn't mean we should. There is nothing for humans in that ocean that we need, because nature knows that we cannot go there. We can't. And there's going to be people in the comments who are like, we came from the water. True. If that's what you believe
80% of our body.
Yeah. True.
Made up of water.
We used to have, gills and stuff. If you believe in evolution and stuff like that, I'm not trying to assume what anyone believes in. I get it. We crawled out of the water and here we are. But here we are. We've evolved to live on Earth. We're no longer sea people. We're no longer sea creatures. And I think nature knows there's nothing for you guys down here except for crushing pressure that will literally obliterate you in a second. And sharks and whales that will eat you with one gulp and not even think twice about it.
Not even whales. Whales, I think it was 4,000 feet is the deepest they've ever recorded a whale. Sperm
but
whale,
who knows what's down there?
Feet.
The Kraken, man.
Well, that I mean, so or what is it? The megalodon, right? They think the megalodon could be down in the meg. But I am a believer. So we differ a little bit there. But I am a believer that in order to find things that may help us, may advance us as a species, we have to go places that are uncomfortable. And there's a very select group of people out there who have the courage to do it. And honestly, most of them are considered crazy until they accomplish it. And that's why they're different than most of us. So I don't have an issue with it.
It could also be crazy and still accomplish it, right? Like
that is also true. Yeah, I think you have to be a little crazy.
Yeah, because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Neither am I. And I consider myself like a person who's willing to do things
Brave.
that are scary. But I'm not going to do that. And so as an explorer, as someone, if that's your passion and that's what you're willing, and you know the risks that come with it. And I will say, in Stockton's defense, the fact that he's willing to get on that device that he's created because either A, he believes in it, or he's willing to put his own life at risk. He's not just sending people down in it, knowing the risks that come with it. He's a captain going down with the ship, if you will. So
yeah, but he's the only one that should have been on that thing then.
So that's the second part of it. So I want to end it on that part because that's the second part of this that I wanted to talk about. So my understanding is that and Stockton Rush and a lot of the explorers that have come out and tried to push back against the villainization, if you will, of this exploration and the idea of doing things like this have said, listen, if there was funding provided for these operations by the government, there wouldn't be a need to go out to private entities to obtain the money needed to create these devices, to create these vehicles to get to these depths. So the argument from their side is we need hundreds of millions of dollars to create this equipment, to finance these trips, to create these submersibles, etc. So what we do is have these private individuals who are multimillionaires and billionaires come in, and although we'd much rather not be serving as a tourist attraction, we need that money in order to supplement and finance the operations that we want to conduct that may help, advance society as a whole. So here's my thing, and I know you disagree with me based on what you've said, and I'm wondering if the majority of you do. Maybe you do. I agree with you on the 19-year-old, by the way. I agree with you on the 19-year-old, but I would make the argument that because from what I've heard in the contract, it's mentioned on 3 different occasions, death could result from this. You're very aware that you going on this operation, this is not a roller coaster. There is a probability, not a strong one, but there is a possibility that you may die during this trip. And they say it multiple times in the contract. Now, if you are someone, even though you're a multi-billionaire, who wants to risk and wants to be an explorer, and that's your passion, and you want to roll the dice on your life to see something that maybe a handful of people will ever see with their own eyes in their entire life, who am I to stop you? It's your body, it's your choice. Do your thing.
No,
I don't know if we should be letting kids go, though. I don't, and I know that he's 19, so he's an adult.
But you should have at least had a 21, maybe a minimum age where it's
something. I feel like that's being a kid. I think it's so hard for all of us, especially parents, to be like, oh, now you said something that caught me, and I didn't know this to be true. But is there evidence that he didn't want to go on this trip?
Yeah, he was terrified,
and understandably so. I think they're all scared.
But that's the thing. No, that's the thing. So what you said is true. If you want to pay that money and you want to take that risk. However, please bear with me and listen to this. You've got this fucking CEO, Stockton Rush, right? Who's like, I've gone on this. It's perfectly safe. There's nothing to worry about. Why would I be putting my life in jeopardy? You're going to be calmed, and it is predatory, kind of, right? It is a little predatory because you got this guy and you're like, yeah, you're right. You're doing it.
But question, if Stockton Rush is willing to put himself on the submersible, don't you think that he truly in his heart believes that?
Do we know he's even mentally well, dude?
I think so.
Because he was well aware of a lot of these issues and he still went down. Sometimes pride can do a lot of damage to, logic.
I think he's mentally capable. I think he was just of the mindset of a lot of these explorers who have done things.
He convinced people it was completely safe when he knew, and there's evidence that he knew it wasn't completely safe because he wanted their money, because he has this goal that he's driving towards.
But don't they put that in the contract? I mean, they said,
whatever,
hey,
dude. I freaking went to an amusement park once and got in one of those bungee things. And I signed a waiver saying I knew I could die, but I also saw 12 people do it before me. And I was like, well, they didn't die.
Yeah.
We sign waivers all the time.
This seems like it'd be a different type of waiver, though.
Oh, for sure. But if you're like
mean-
a billionaire and you're used to just throwing money at stuff and you kind of feel like invincible in a way, like nothing can touch me.
I also
I'm a
think by
freaking
saying like,
billionaire.
hey, how many successful trips have you made with human beings? Only 2. I think that's something where I'm going to go, oh, you know what? I want to wait until maybe like 200 have gone. If you want to be a pioneer.
Not even then, dude. No, I'm out. Not even then.
I wouldn't
Nope.
either, but I'm saying this billionaire, we could keep going with this. I guess what I'm getting at, and you mentioned this on an IG post, there was kind of this outlook by some people on like, almost making fun of this billionaire. And what are their names? And I apologize. What are their names? So we're saying them by name, the father and son.
All right, so we have Hamish Harding. He was a British businessman and explorer and billionaire. Actually, and then this is one of the things that people are like, oh, he sucks. Like, why did he spend his money on this? He could have been like helping people. He did help people, by the way. Hamish Harding donated tons and tons and tons of money to charity. So that's the context that I think people are missing. And they look at things like from a very one-dimensional perspective. And then you had Shahzad Dawood. He was the British Pakistani businessman. And then his son, Suleiman, who was 19 years old. And then you had Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who is a French maritime expert. He was the foremost expert on the Titanic in like the world. They called him Mr. Titanic. Huge loss of knowledge and just experience. And then you have Stockton Rush himself, who was the 5th person on board. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we said their names. And their names, some of those are very difficult. So I'm not going to sound like an idiot and try to repeat them.
Yeah.
But point being, those individuals made a decision to go down there and spend their money the way they wanted to spend it. There shouldn't be memes or anything like that going around making light of the situation.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird take.
Even though it was probably very quick for them, these are fathers, brothers, husbands.
They've left people behind. Yeah.
Yeah, there's family members who have to live with the visualization of what happened that day. And there was a period where there's jokes and memes being made before we even knew.
It's still happening. Yeah.
That they were dead. There was a possibility they were at the bottom of this, on the sea floor, just running out of oxygen in a pitch black, hypothermic location.
As people were making skits about it on TikTok.
Crazy
weird
to me. So my takeaway from all of this is I hope there definitely has to be some more oversight. But I know that regardless, this company and what they're doing is probably, like you said, it's tarnished forever. And I don't think many people are going to be willing to do it other than the explorers maybe. But I really I hope it doesn't completely shut down the idea of, hey, sometimes to discover the greatest things in life, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. And in some cases, for the best reward, it even involves risking your own life. Now, not everybody's built to do that. Most of us are not, especially with people who have things to lose at home. We're not willing to risk that. But Stockton Rush and his crew, regardless of what you think about them, they were putting their lives on the line to do it. An argument could be made that because of those other things, they shouldn't even have offered it to other people, like you said. And I don't think you're the only one that thinks that, but I really do.
Don't you agree?
My thing is this: I'd have to see the contract, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think there's an argument to be made. Not even an argument. I think you're right in the sense where if there's emails, if there's correspondence going back and forth, where experts and engineers and other people are pointing out flaws in the system to Stockton Rush, and those things after those email correspondence, some of which you read, corrections were not made. And not thoroughly tested, then no, even if they need money, they shouldn't be experimenting with these modifications that they made while there are pedestrians, while there are citizens on board who are not familiar with the intricacies of what is going on, and maybe not necessarily realizing that not only are they getting a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but they're actually guinea pigs to test out whatever changes they've made to the structure of the submersible. I have a problem with that. The equivalent would be this, right? You said roller coaster, right? We all know there's a risk going on a roller coaster, right? But
you've seen Final Destination. I think so.
We're under the understanding that roller coaster, the engineers and the people in charge of it feel at the time when we're about to ride it is as safe as they can make it for us to ride it. They're not currently working on better ways to do the roller coaster so it'd be safer. They've already vetted it. They've experimented with it. They've done multiple trial runs to the point where they're confident that we can ride it and safely get off of it. It sounds like in this situation, there was a lot of doubt about the submersible itself. And to your point, that is not the time when you bring people out to go on and try it. It should be crew and crew only, risking their lives, going down to those depths, doing what they need to do to ensure that after multiple dives, 50 is, I think, a minimum, as you said. That's a low number. But going down, making sure that the whole stays intact. And then at that point, in order to finance the program, to advance the program, if you want to bring in people who are financially in a position to do so, then sure, do it. So I definitely think there's changes that need to be made, but I'm hoping it doesn't completely negate what is being done and what can be accomplished by these individuals who are willing to risk it all to find things that where you and I are sitting here right now, we're currently not aware of. And maybe 10 years from now, they find a cure for cancer at that depth. We don't know.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be lots of varied opinions.
I can't wait. I'm actually excited. I'm like super excited about it because this is like nerdy.
I already did a video about this. Don't be that excited because people will be straight up dicks.
Well, I mean, whatever. I mean, that's par for the course.
Dicks. And you know what? Like, just because these people are rich, they don't care about them. And that like blows my mind because they're still humans. And you know what else? Every time a celebrity dies, people are like freaking in mourning about it for like a week. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe Betty White died. Yo, she was rich. But just because you know her, because you have a history with her, because you have like nostalgia, she's a real person to you. These people are real people. They're not just rich people. But because you didn't see them on your TV or hear them through your stereo every day, you don't have that like connection to them. But like every time a celebrity dies, these people are millionaires, you know, and nobody's like over here making fun of. I mean, some people are, but not to this extent, right? So like just some perspective. You know, try to be sensitive because like Derek said, these people that died, they have families who are still alive and probably this is the worst thing that's ever happened to them.
Yeah, this wasn't Putin on the submersible.
No,
you know what I mean?
Putin or like, you know, a serial killer or something like, and then people will be like, you can't be a billionaire without like hurting innocent people. Well, like, I don't know, but you don't know either. Okay. Like you just don't know. That's a very stupid generalized statement to make. And like, oh, you're taking advantage of people. Like, who knows? We don't freaking know, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm interested to hear everyone's comments. I know we'll have a couple weird ones, but that's cool. I like to get it's a really good sample size to understand what everyone's feeling, and I'm glad we covered it this week. I knew you had told me you had covered it on your channel. I really wanted to talk about it.
Yeah,
it's always again, you always got to phrase how you say this the right way, but like a lighter conversation where we're covering death almost every single week. This is no different, which is kind of why we covered it. And there could be, in the eyes of many, some criminal element to this where it may not be intentional, but the negligence of it in fact is criminal.
There was there was some serious negligence.
So for example, if Stockton is not on this submersible, is he going to be arrested after this? It's very possible.
I mean, there's still people at OceanGate. It looks like they are closed indefinitely, but these people
could be held responsible.
Should be held responsible.
Right. So there you go. Yes. So that's why we covered it. And sorry,
OceanGate, but it's true.
I mean, yeah. Well, they you know, if you're part of it,
you're willing to take the risk. You have to understand that there may be some repercussions.
Right.
And
especially if you're putting employees and even worse, you know, just customers at risk when you're aware that there's things not right with the product. I mean, I agree. So weigh in down below. Obviously, we want to hear your comment.
One.
It was our longest Crime Weekly news ever, but it went fast because it's something I think that
we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, I could talk.
I mean, there's so much to talk about.
It's such a fascinating topic, which I think is why everyone was so captivated by it. But yeah, weigh in down below. Let us know what you think about it. We really want to hear your opinions on it. We discussed a couple different elements of it there, so weigh in on all of it. And just a reminder, Summer 10. criminalcoffeeco.com. You can go over there. You can buy your coffee. You can buy your merchandise. Entire site, 10% off. Just remember, it's technically two different carts, if you will. If you're going to buy both, you just got to remember that. If you're going to buy one or the other, it's super easy. No problem at all. And once it's gone. Coffee, we're going to keep replenishing. And then the final thing, because I'm getting a lot of emails about it, and I appreciate it so much. It means you guys like it. K-Cups are coming. There's a manufacturing process with it. I was explaining it to Stephanie today, trying not to cry on the phone with her because it's a very strenuous process. When you're dealing with mass manufacturing and you're someone like me who hasn't done it his entire life, it's a learning curve. And I'm learning as I go, but it is coming and there's going to be a lot of them. And I'm hoping by the first week of July. So if you're someone that's subscribed before, once we get it in, you will get your K-Cups first, and then we'll have some left. I guarantee you that'll go out to customers as well. We're going to have plenty left because I ordered a lot. So just stick with us. We appreciate all the support. I'll give you the floor for the final word, Stephanie. But this was a long Crime Weekly news.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this, but that's the thing. I think that's normal to not know how to feel about this.
Right.
Right. And you should kind of be in a place where you're trying to see it, like, just as a normal human, like, from all perspectives. And it just seems like too many people are looking at this so black and white, so unobjectively, where it's like they just feel a certain way about, I guess, the money of the people. And so it just they don't care about any other context. And I just don't think that's the way to look at any situation. So I really don't know how to feel. I agree with you. Exploration is great. And if people are going to do it, I'll watch. I want to see what you find. I'm cool with that. But you really do need to be like upfront with people. And I just think that the people who were brought, especially Suleiman, the 19-year-old, I don't think that they were given adequate like warning of how dangerous this could be. And that's not fair. And that's not right.
I agree with that, especially if there's emails. And it appears there are emails where the people at the captain of the ship, the person, whether they're going down or not, is aware of it. And the question becomes very simple. Were those emails disclosed to those individuals before they got
definitely on? Not. Absolutely.
Definitely not. And therein lies the problem, right? Even though you're putting death in the contract,
doesn't matter.
You got to spell it out.
Because if you hand somebody a contract that says death, but then you got Stockton Rush over here all
off
smiling
the record,
and teeth. And saying, like, hey, just sign this. Like, yeah, we got to say that, it's illegal, but nothing's going to happen.
And it's very possible he was. We don't know.
He was. He absolutely was. Because there's a journalist that went down last year, David Pogue, and basically he was like terrified, and they got lost for like 3 hours, and they never even made it to Titanic. And he was like, I was terrified. And Stockton Rush was like, don't worry about this. You're not going to have to worry about anything. Like, anything that could happen is so remote. Like, he just like calms their fears. Going down in that thing to where they were going, you should have fears. You should have fears to the point where you're terrified. And if you still go, then you did that in spite of having all the information. And then, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Well,
otherwise you were manipulated to like your death. And that's not right. Because they wanted their money. Like, I'm sorry.
Here we go. Allegedly. Here's Stephanie stacking the deck at the end. Go ahead. Anything else?
Allegedly, OceanGate wanted these people's money, and so they
needed it. They needed it.
And so, like any salesperson will do, because that's what they are, salespeople. These people clearly don't know shit about tech. I'm sorry. They clearly don't know shit about how to build a submarine, for sure. They just threw stuff together, said, oh, NASA helped us. And then they're salespeople. They're salespeople masquerading as like these innovative, like, I don't know, what do you call them? Innovative, like inventors. Like, you're no freaking Richard Branson. Okay. But anyways, yeah, they're salespeople.
By the way, I'm glad we ended on that objective note. That was great.
They're salespeople.
I disagree.
They're salespeople.
They're salespeople trying to provide. But they're selling a product because they're trying to fund said product. They're not trying to make a profit necessarily. They're trying to fund.
They're selling a flawed product.
But it's not even a product, a consumable. It's not a consumer product. They're doing it to fund operations.
Okay, they're not I mean, next time you buy a used car and that bitch dies 2 miles off the lot, tell me that you don't mind because the salesperson's just trying to fund more cars.
That's not what they're doing. A car salesman's trying to make a profit by cutting corners.
So are they. Because you know what? They did cut corners on these submersibles, man. They did cut corners. What are they doing with the $250,000 per person? Where is it going?
They're putting it into R&D and building a better sub and paying for how expensive it is to get those ships out there, to have all these people that run the ship to develop and create new technology to make it safer and make the trip down safer. I think that's where, if there's something that comes out that says Stockton Rush was taking the money from these individuals and pocketing it, I'll completely redact but I'll pull it back and I'll say, hey, listen, this guy was cutting corners to make more money for himself. My understanding at this point is he felt like he was being constricted by individuals who didn't understand what he was trying to do. And I think a lot of the times when he was making comparisons to Elon and Richard Branson.
What do you think Stockton Rush's net worth is?
Go ahead, look it up. What is? I'm sure he's made a lot of money. I mean, he's had to fund these programs.
How much do you think? Okay, how much do you think is a lot of money?
I don't know. How much is he worth?
So Stockton Rush himself is worth $25 million and OceanGate's valued at $66 million. So
Right.
do you think like maybe some of this money, because this is his job, you shouldn't have $25 million and then talk about how you don't have enough money to freaking put into your like submersible. Right?
I think it's hundreds of millions of dollars to do what they're doing. But I would be lying if I said I knew the details of it. I just know it's very expensive to conduct these types of operations, and also to have scientists and engineers and all these different people on salary to constantly try new things, and 99% of the time it doesn't work out and they got to start over again.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just feel like it's a very expensive thing. But you got your point across at the end there, where if anyone was on the fence, I can assure you they're on Team Stephanie now for sure.
I don't think so.
You got them. What I say a couple episodes, I'm like, you always like choose what you want, but just before you do, know this. Boom, 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 boom. If you vote that way, you're the devil.
I feel bad regardless, but I don't know.
For me, I don't think anybody in this situation at the core was a bad, evil person.
No.
I don't think that. And I think that sometimes when you have a goal or an ambition, you're blinded. You have tunnel vision. Yeah. You have tunnel vision. You're blinded by some of the obvious signs that you should be taken more seriously than you really do. And we have a very unfortunate situation, which includes the individual who was kind of spearheading the whole thing, dying as well in this situation. So it's a loss for everyone, because as you said, there's a lot of people on that submersible with a lot of knowledge about what they were doing, how they were going to do it in the future, and that's gone. So we'll see where it goes from here. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more oversight, a lot more regulation brought down on these types of organizations.
Now all these people are popping up and being like, I was supposed to be on the, like, did you see Mr. Beast? Like came out, I think today, and he was like, I was supposed to be on the Titan or something, or like he was, asked to go, and it's like.
The host of the Expedition Impossible, that guy, I watched a couple episodes. He actually went on it, and they only went down like a few 100 feet or whatever, and then they came up because of bad weather. But it's a picture of him inside that exact or one of those submersibles.
It would have to be that one, because that was the only one.
So there you go. He was inside that tube with Stockton Rush. And so I know the explorer community is really nervous right now, just as far as how this is being perceived and how it may prevent people from doing these types of things in the future. So we'll see. We definitely covered it at length. That's for sure. I mean, this is an hour for you right here, and I'm glad, because
we still have to record our main episode.
It's 11:30 at night.
Wrap it up, dude.
We haven't even finished. So I'm not even going to say final word to Stephanie, because I know what that's going to go.
Don't do it.
I won't do it. We appreciate your support. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, turn your notifications on, because YouTube is horrible with approving these videos based on how the titles are labeled. And just last week, we didn't release our Crime Weekly news until Thursday, but we got it out there. Hopefully that's not the case this week. We appreciate you if you stayed all the way through this video. If you did, make sure you comment down below. Everyone, have a good night. Stay safe out there. And we will see you on Friday for audio and Sunday for YouTube.
Bye.
Bye.